Now interrupted for questions. Are there any questions? Leave to the opposition.
Mr President, my question without notice is to the Deputy Leader of the Government, the Minister for Primary Industries, Minister for Regional Water and Minister for Trade and Industry. Minister, what is your response to industry concerns that Mr Simon Smith was removed from his role as Secretary of the Department of Industry as a scapegoat for your failure to provide accurate information on water management to this Parliament?
The only one who goes for it.
7 Labor MPs.
Mr President, I thank the honourable member for his question. And Mr President, the member is obviously relating to a statement that was put out regarding the Secretary of the Department of Industry back on the 16th of March, where the Premier announced that Simon Smith, Secretary of the New South Wales Department of Industry, will be moving on after 3 years' service in that role and a total of 24 years in the New South Wales Public Service. She went on to say, during this time as Secretary, the Department of Industry has evolved into the state's most diverse cluster, helping create conditions for the New South Wales community to prosper, ensuring we have a highly skilled workforce, managing our natural resources sustainably and encouraging investment and competition, the Premier said. Mr Smith has been Secretary of the Department of Industry since July 2015 and had previously been Chief Executive at the Office of Finance and Services. Before that, he held a position of Deputy Secretary at both the New South Wales Department of Premier and Cabinet and the Office of Environment and Heritage. Mr President, the statement went on to say, Minister for Industry, NIALL BLAIR, said that during Mr Smith's tenure, the Department of Industry has played a key role in creating the conditions to drive the New South Wales Government Skills and Jobs Plan, which has seen the creation of 250,000 jobs since 2015. Simon has been a key advisor to me and my fellow cluster ministers, and I thank him for his service over many years to the state, Mr Blair said. It also said his extensive service to the New South Wales Public Service over more than 2 decades has seen him play a critical leadership role for a generation of public servants. And Mr Smith went on to say in a statement, it has been an honour and a privilege to serve the state across the portfolios of industry, finance, Premier and Cabinet and the environment, but now it's time to move on to a new phase of service. So, Mr President, that was the statement that was released in relation to the departing Secretary. In relation to the member trying to draw some sort of a line between this and issues in water, I absolutely refute any of those allegations. And I'm very happy to put on the record the role that Simon Smith played, particularly in the government's response to those allegations that were made in relation to water here in New South Wales. Mr Smith was a key part of the government's initial response in asking Mr Ken Matthews to investigate those allegations, and also a key architect of the government's response, particularly in creation of the Natural Resource Access Regulator, and then the subsequent changes that we are now out consulting with stakeholders about right across the communities of New South Wales, Mr President. In fact, I was very happy to have Mr Smith sit next to me at the Ministerial Council meeting in Albury in December and explain New South Wales's response to those allegations, and to talk through not only the Commonwealth but all of the other Murray-Darling Basin states at that meeting, and open himself up to answer any of their questions. And Mr President, it was his response, sitting next to me representing New South Wales at that meeting, that led those states and the Commonwealth to comment that they have confidence in the way that we are addressing those allegations here in New South Wales, Mr President. Mr Smith has been a very good servant to the people of New South Wales, Mr President, and anyone that wants to say that his response and actions in relation to water were not something that we are happy of.
Minister's time has expired.
Supplementary question. Supplementary question.
The Leader of the Opposition on a supplementary question.
Thank you, Mr President. Could the Minister elucidate that part of his answer where he referred to Mr Smith's further phase of service and tell us what that will be? You mentioned, you quoted from the statement when Mr Smith said he's looking forward to a further phase of service.
Mr. President, I thank the Leader of the Opposition for his supplementary. What he's referring to is a statement made by Mr. Smith about a new phase of service. I'm sorry, I cannot answer I cannot answer in relation to a part of the statement made by another person that is not a member of this House, who is no longer working for the New South Wales Government as to what they are doing now.
Why is that?
Mr. President.